Chapter 8. Will you come again, Santa? Before you read, many festivals are celebrated to mark the triumph of good over evil, such as the festival of lights, Diwali. However, festivals are also a time where past mistakes can be forgiven and people can change for the better. Do you think change is difficult? Is it necessary for people to change? Let us read the story and see how a little girl softened the heart of a thief and changed him into a better man. Hey Joe, get up. Joe opened his eyes and looked at his neighbor Peter. Joe, do you want to make rupee 400? Peter asked. Of course, but how? All you have to do is dress up as Santa Claus and go to Delight departmental store. There you have to spend 2 days smiling and laughing and wishing everyone Merry Christmas, Peter informed Joe. For that you need a costume. I don't have one, Joe made a face. I have one and it will fit you perfectly. Last year I played Santa Claus and made some money. Peter offered help. Then why aren't you going? Joe asked. I have some urgent work. It was a hectic day for Joe. Initially, he found it quite odd, but he gradually got used to it. Joe liked kids and he had fun chatting with them, giving them chocolates and posing for photographs. At the end of the day, the manager of the shop gave him 2 crisp 100-rupee notes. Joe walked back to his house. He was still wearing the costume. It was past 10 in the night and quite cold. The costume made him feel warm. Oblivious to the stares of the passers-by, he walked along, humming a tune. Suddenly, there was a loud honk and he jumped aside. A car was reversing onto the road from a driveway of a bungalow. As he watched, the car swerved and sped away. He recognized the driver. It was Bill Daniel, the owner of Paradise, a 3-star hotel. His wife Sarah was sitting beside him. Joe was a pickpocket and a petty thief who lived from day to day. He harbored a grudge against Daniel for having him thrown out of his hotel some time back. An idea struck Joe. He decided to break into Daniel's house and try to get his hands on something. He circled the house very quietly, keeping in the shadows. The sentry, who was on guard, had gone back to his little room and was sitting and dozing. Joe found a huge peepal tree, the branches of which touched a windowsill. In spite of his bulk, Joe was sly and quick. In minutes, he was on the windowsill. The window had no bars but was locked. Joe removed a screwdriver from his pocket and prized open the lock. He went in and looked around. It looked like a dining hall. In one corner was a Christmas tree, beautifully decorated, its multicolored lights spreading radiance. You are early, he heard a soft voice and almost jumped out of his skin. He turned around. A 6-year-old girl clad in a pink nightgown was standing behind, staring at him. She had big round eyes, pink cheeks and a tiny mouth which was open. My mama told me that you will come after 12, she said. I? Joe could only stammer. Santa Claus comes only after midnight. Isn't it? The girl said, looking into his eyes. Hearing her words, truth dawned on Joe. Because of his costume, the little girl had mistaken him for the Santa Claus. He decided to play along and escape as quickly as possible. What is your name? Joe finally asked. Tina. Where is everybody? He asked. Papa and Mama have gone to the club, said Tina glumly. They will come back very late. And Simon had to attend a party. Who is Simon? Joe asked. Oh, he is our cook who makes lovely cakes and pastries. He told me he will come back before Mama. Joe did not know what to do. He stood staring at her. Come on, where are my gifts? Tina asked excitedly. Your gifts? Joe was perplexed. You silly, are you not supposed to be carrying gifts for me? Are you not here for that? Tina asked matter-of-factly. Ah, yes. What did you ask for? Joe felt trapped. You are indeed forgetful, Santa. Don't you remember? I had asked you to get me something which you would like to have if you were a child. Oh yes, of course, now I remember, Joe said, still fumbling. He put his hands in his pockets, desperately racking his brains. Suddenly his hands closed on something cold and hard, and he realized it was his mouth organ, his favorite companion. Joe was terrific at playing the mouth organ. He took out the instrument from his pocket and handed it to the girl. What is this? Tina turned the mouth organ in her hand. It is a mouth organ, a musical instrument, Joe said. How do you play it? Tina asked curiously. Come, I will show you, Joe said. Joe took the mouth organ from her and started playing Jingle Bells. Soon the music of the carol filled the house. When he had finished, Joe looked at Tina. She clapped her hands and squealed. Santa, it was beautiful. Play me some more. Tina took his hand, made him sit on the sofa and settled in his lap. Joe played some of the tunes he knew. After some time, he looked down. Tina's eyes were closed and there was a gentle smile on her pretty, cherubic face. He waited for a couple of minutes and then gently raised her head. He wanted to shift her so that he could make good his escape. As Joe was about to get up, Tina opened her eyes. You are leaving me and going, Santa? She asked. I... Joe did not know what to say. I know that was what you were planning to do. Please don't leave me, Santa. I feel very lonely. Both my parents are working. They are very busy. They have no time to spend with me. I either watch TV or play with my toys. After a long time, I have found a friend. Don't leave me and go, Tina said. Her large round eyes filled with tears. Suddenly, Joe felt a strange sensation. It was as if someone had placed a heavy weight on his chest. He choked back his tears. He placed Tina's head on his shoulder and started playing his favorite tunes on the mouth organ all over again. After 10 minutes or so, Joe stopped and found Tina fast asleep. He decided he would give her some more time and then quietly leave. Soon Joe started dozing. Who are you? Joe heard a voice coming from a distance, shattering the peace of the house. Startled, Joe opened his eyes. Joe gently shifted Tina on the sofa and got up. Daniel glared at him. Wait a minute. Are you not the pickpocket I had thrown out a few months ago? Joe looked down, unable to meet his eyes. Tina woke up, hearing the commotion. What are you saying, Papa? He is Santa Claus, my best friend, Tina said, sitting up on the sofa and reaching for Joe's hand. Santa Claus indeed. This rascal is a thief who must have come to burgle our house. Wait, I know how to deal with such scoundrels. A month or two in the lockup and he will forget about playing mean tricks on little girls. Papa, he did not play any mean trick on me, Tina said. The only thing he played was the mouth organ. And he played it beautifully. See his dress. He is Santa Claus. Shut up, Tina, and go to your room, Sarah shouted. Tina slowly walked to her room and tears in her eyes and hiding behind the curtains, she watched her parents confronting Santa Claus. Wait, Mr. Daniel, Joe said. You hand me over to the police by all means. I broke into your house and that is indeed a crime. But my crime is far less serious than yours. What are you blabbering, you fool? Daniel shouted. I broke into your house and finding a child sad and lonely, gave her company. I did not steal anything though I had the opportunity and the time. Before I could think of stealing, Tina's lonely, childlike innocence won me over. Joe spoke with a conviction he had never felt before. Oh, shut up and don't look for excuses, growled Daniel. Sir, you and madam are educated, rich and cultured people, yet you are committing a crime every day of your life. You are depriving your child of your love, affection and time. Isn't that a crime? Joe asked accusingly. What nonsense, shouted Daniel. We have given Tina everything a child can ask for. The costliest dresses, the best toys and whatever money can buy. How dare you tell us about our responsibilities, you thief? Yes, I am a thief. I steal what is not mine, Joe argued. But at least I don't crush innocent hearts. You have given Tina everything money can buy. Obviously, you have deprived her of one thing which money cannot buy, which is free yet invaluable, your time. The way she clung to me this night brought tears to my eyes. I used to think I am very unfortunate. I am poor and an uncultured, a petty criminal. But today I have realized that you are far more unfortunate than I am. In fact, I pity you, Mr. Daniel. What do you mean? Daniel asked. Mr. Daniel, you have the greatest, the ultimate treasure imaginable in your house, the love of a sweet and innocent child, and you neglect her and go searching for pleasure outside in clubs and hotels like scavengers searching for scraps in a dustbin. This makes your condition pitiable. Joe stopped, surprised at his own eloquence. Daniel's face had turned red and he advanced towards Joe to hit him. Daniel, let this man go. Sarah spoke very slowly. Are you out of your mind? Daniel yelled at his wife. Daniel, he could have taken advantage of Tina being alone in the house. Yet he did not. Moreover, what he said was right. Our sin is worse than his. Daniel opened his mouth to speak and then closed it. You may go. He nodded curtly. As Joe turned to leave, Tina stepped out of her room and ran to him. Will you come again, Santa? Joe placed the mouth organ in her hand, bent down and kissed her forehead. Then without a word he walked out of the house. Read the laughing song. When the green woods laugh with a voice of joy, and the dimpling stream runs laughing by, when the air does laugh with our merry wit, and the green hills laughs with the noise of it, when the meadows laugh with lively green, and the grasshopper laughs in the merry scene, when Mary and Susan and Emily with their sweet round mouths sing, ha ha he. When the painted birds laugh in the shade, where our table with cherries and nuts is spread, come live and be merry and join with me to sing the sweet chorus of Ha Ha He. Summary. This is a poem that celebrates happiness and joy in various forms. It starts with the laughter of nature as of the woods, streams, air, hills and meadows that fills the world with their laughter simply by existing. Then the poem shifts to the laughter of grasshopper and then of a girl, Mary, Susan and Emily. Finally, the poem steers towards the end with the laughter of birds that are near the table that has been said by the speaker and his listener. It eventually closes when the speaker invites the same listener to join in the laughter of the world around them.